round game of the NCAA men's basketball tournament. They play Michigan State with an 11:15 tip-off tomorrow from Charlotte, North Carolina. That is where Robbie Faulk joins us from. Forgive me for ending a sentence with a preposition. Robbie Faulk on 3 Sports, Starkville Daily News, covering Mississippi State as they get set for that matchup with Michigan State. Robbie, what's the vibe like in Charlotte on the eve of the tournament beginning?
I think there's, a lot of confidence with this team. The way that they played in the tournament last week was really big for them to kind of get back on track, get a couple of wins, and they feel like they're playing their best basketball. This is a veteran team. When you look at the roster, it's got so many guys that are seniors and that have been here for 5 years that have played a lot of basketball, and then last year got a chance to actually get in the tournament, albeit in a play-in game. It was a similar feel to what they're getting now. So I think that's a big plus for this team. They obviously have some things that they need to do well on Thursday to win that ball game, but right now they feel comfortable and confident that they're in pretty good shape going into this game. We'll see if they're able to put it out on the floor on Thursday morning.
It's interesting you say that about experience, and I'm not sure that we made enough of that. One of the Mississippi State games that I was doing this year, I was going through game notes, and I actually think it was somebody else's game notes, and it was like most returning starts or most starts on a team. And I think Mississippi State was like second or third in the entire country. I mean, there is a ton of experience, and it's a group that, with the exception of Josh Hubbard, largely has been through this NCAA experience before. How important is that?
I think it's huge, man. I really do. Last year, that team went into the first 4, and nobody had experience in the NCAA tournament. I think you kind of saw that a little bit. I put myself through the misery of watching the last, 5 minutes of that game earlier today, and watching just how close State was to advancing, it was pretty rough. But I look out on the floor and I see DJ Jeffries, Tolu Smith, Shaq Moore, Cam Matthews. Everybody on the floor, Sean Jones, I think, was out there. Everybody on the floor is going to be on the floor tomorrow. And I think that means something. And so a lot of Mississippi State fans throughout the year that were saying, why did we bring back so-and-so when we could have gone out in the portal and found somebody better? Now, late in the season, you're seeing those players make some huge plays down the stretch of ball games, and specifically in the SEC tournament, guys that earlier in the season you weren't getting what you wanted to get out of, like Shaq Moore, Rams Davis, DJ Jeffries. Those guys are critical for Mississippi State and what they do defensively, or even hitting a big shot here and there. Those guys are going to be on the floor on Thursday, and I think that is a huge thing for you in postseason play. And you look at a lot of these teams that make runs that might not be in the blue blood category are teams that have been there before or that have played a lot of college basketball. And I think that's going to be huge for Mississippi State on Thursday when they go up against a Michigan State team that hasn't really been Michigan State this year. They're in the tournament, but this isn't, your usual Tom Izzo team. I think that's going to mean something on Thursday.
And we wondered if they would be early in the year because they were a top 5 team, but obviously only 19 wins this season. You said something a second ago that fascinated me. You said Mississippi State believes it's playing its best basketball of the year. And it's kind of incredible how quickly that switch can flip, because it was 4 straight losses to close out the regular season, to Kentucky, to Auburn, to Texas A&M, South Carolina in overtime. But then things changed in Nashville with the 10-point win against LSU, the blowout win against Tennessee, and then they lose the game to Auburn, but I didn't feel like they played a terrible game. Why do you think that switch flipped so quickly?
I think they're back to playing their defensive style. If you look at that losing streak, and I'm sure you watched some of that, I don't think State was playing bad basketball. They lost to 4 tournament teams during that stretch, and they scored 89 points against Kentucky. They started rough against Auburn, but they got back in that ballgame in the second half. Thought they played well. They really got back in the ballgame against A&M after digging themselves a hole. And then South Carolina, they scored 89 points against them. But the games that they really had a chance to win, South Carolina and Kentucky, they gave up 91 points and 93 points. And that's not Mississippi State basketball. Richard, you called some games this year and last year too. That's not how Mississippi State wins games. Scoring 89 points is not their game. If you look at what they did in the tournament, they completely suffocated Tennessee, made things difficult for Dalton Connect. Second half against LSU was fantastic. They were playing their defensive game. They gave up 73 to Auburn, which a good team like that offensively, that's kind of your wheelhouse. I think they're getting their groove back on the defensive side of the ball, and their defense leading to offense is how Mississippi State is supposed to play. And that's why I think they're kind of there.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. And then you think about, okay, what were the games this year where Mississippi State did exactly what you're talking about and it led to wins, right? I think about that Auburn game in Starkville, which was late January. They win that game 64-58. Auburn is a team that some people are saying could be a Final Four team. Obviously, people have loved this Tennessee team all season long. The 5-point win in Starkville back in January and then what they did in the tournament, and I think you kind of hit the nail on the head there with the defense is what will make the difference in winning or losing.
Yeah, and you look back at the Tennessee game, you held them to the one in the regular season, you held them to like 20 points at halftime. You held them to 19 in the SEC tournament.
Yeah.
That's kind of their thing. And they might score 68 points in a win, but it feels like they're up by 20 because of what they do on the defensive side of the ball. So that's kind of the game they have to play. But in this game against Michigan State, I think you have to play that game on top of the fact that you really need to get Tolu Smith back in gear. I said that I think this team's playing their best basketball, but maybe that's not so true because Tolu Smith is not playing his best basketball. So I think that he has to finish in the paint in this game. They're going to have a size advantage. State has to do what they did against Tennessee and kind of bully them in the post, which, is strange that they did that because Tolu didn't have a good game, but you really need your all-SEC guy to come to the forefront in this game, I think.
We were looking at numbers yesterday for Tolu Smith, and it really is incredible. So 86% of his shots come at the rim, and yet he's only shooting 62%. That's a number that for an elite big man needs to be like 75 to 80%. And I feel like, Robbie, we've seen times where he looked like that guy, where he was very confident. He's using the glass. He's using his body, using good moves. Do you think there's anything in particular going on? Is it just the grind of an entire season? Can he rise to the level of kind of being an elite bulldog, pardon the pun, down low in this game tomorrow against Michigan State?
Yeah, I mean, that's the question. That a couple of weeks ago, he got hurt at practice. I think he went up for a shot or something and hit the floor hard and got hurt. And I forget exactly what the injury was, hip maybe or something, and it's obviously affected him. He hasn't really been the same since that time. And, State's a team that has worked through him offensively a lot, and he hasn't been able to finish around the rim, and that's been huge. He really struggled in the SEC tournament, and you cannot just rely on Josh Hubbard to be your engine on the offensive end. He's done an incredible job putting the team on his back offensively and giving them a chance. But you got to have more from Tolu Smith to make it a more inside-out game for Mississippi State and do what they want to do offensively. And it takes a lot of pressure off your guards when you're able to do that. But it just remains to be seen. The last few games have not been good for Tolu. We'll see if he's able to kind of come out of it here in the tournament. You definitely need it.
All right, last thing. What do we need to know about this Michigan State team? And we talked about the fact that this does not look like a vintage Tom Izzo team. They've got 19 wins. They were a preseason top 5 team, early season top 5 team. What do we need to know about them? Got about a minute left.
Yeah, this is a team that, the main message on Thursday is they are going to want to run, and that's on missed shots, turnovers, made shots. Chris Jans said if we're celebrating after a shot, they're on the other end of the floor and the ball is going to the hoop. So we better not be doing that. And I can promise you that's going to be his message to them. This is a team that, early in the season they played an exhibition game against Tennessee and went toe to toe against them. They played a good schedule, so they're prepared just like Mississippi State is. They just haven't been able to really get over the hump. But I think they really like to run. Tom Izzo's teams are going to be tough and physical. I'm expecting a good defensive game from them as well. But we'll see if they're able to match up from a size perspective against Mississippi State, and if State can take advantage of that.
Is your prediction close and low scoring?
I think so. I think it's going to be in the 60s, maybe the 70s. Michigan State doesn't score a lot of points either. So
yeah,
if it's a defensive ball game like I think it will, it's going to be 50s, 60s. It might be an ugly ball game, but that's what Mississippi State wants.
Robbie, thanks